Hi folks, and welcome to my series, How to Main Science. This is Bane, as always, bringing you a new series where we're going to look at how I build my character in Star Trek Online to do some of the damage that I do, while also looking at some of my PvP builds as well later on in the series, and working with my friends in the Breakfast Club, which to me is one of the greatest fleets you could possibly be a part of. We'll be going over the very basics on the one side to the very advanced stuff on the other side. We'll be talking about things like categories of damage, so you get an understanding of them. Some of the guys in Reddit love to chat about Star Trek Online and all the mathematics involved. We're going to try and dumb that down for you guys so it's a little bit easier to understand, and talk about those things that count as bonus damage and those things that count as normal applied damage. There are lots of consoles in this game, and things do change quite rapidly every time they release a new lockbox set. So we're going to see what we can do to bring you up to date on some of the stuff and some of the tricks with science as a character now. Step one, let's talk about the skill tree. So guys, we're here in the skill tree. This is Star Trek Online. Just to show you, this is my character behind, and as you see, my lovely Voth armor. So we're going to look at skills, and obviously if you've not done your skill tree for a while, you might not have any skill tokens. You can retrain your skills, you can buy retrain tokens. It'll cost you 300 Zen, but you should have some free retrain tokens if you've not used one for a while. Just check that before you go buying any tokens. You want to use a retrain token, of course, and you want to start from scratch. Now, you'll notice throughout the entire tree that as a science player, I have taken 0, and that's right, 0 in tactical, because I'm all about buffing my science abilities. And you're then going, Bane, you've taken some in engineering though, and why is that? Because science is about survivability as well as about buffing my science ability damage and my science ability cooldowns and my haste in general. We want to try and buff things that are going to help the whole build. So very simple. We're going to look at Lieutenant straight away. Very simple. We're going to fill out our lieutenant in science. So this is all shield restoration, as you can see. This is going to add our shield restoration. This is going to increase that shield restoration, the base amount that we heal as well, with our abilities like science team, etc. And any procs that we get to our shields, which will come in handy later if we've got certain traits, for example, on our ship, that are going to boost our shield restoration, any of those kind of abilities that will affect that. We also have shield capacity. Obviously, shield capacity is actually increasing the amount of shields that we have, and this is then added as a base value bonus to the amount of shields that we have. So again, taking these just gives us a little bit of a boost per slot. You'll notice in engineering, we've got hull capacity, again trying to keep your science ship alive, because I'll be honest with you, a lot of the science ships, let's take the Vesta as an example, or the Scryer, or even the Nautilus, they're very squishy. So any of those science ships you kind of want to try and keep alive as best you can. Obviously traits do help immensely, and we'll come on to those in another video. But for the basics, obviously trying to get all the hull capacity and indeed the hull restoration as well is just going to help you stay alive that little bit longer. And as the saying goes, every little helps. We then have in engineering Electro plasma system flow. So this is actually going to help our base power transfer rate, and also we're going to add extra subsystem power. So again, subsystems really important to a science player. You want to be, I'll show you how to set your subsystems again in another video for science and generally for playing PvE, because obviously you want to focus a lot on PvE. We'll talk about PvP in the advanced series, but essentially any of this is going to help us in terms of transferring our power as and when we need it. So of course, if we're moving around a lot, etc., we're using abilities that affect our power levels, this is going to obviously increase that. We also have the impulse expertise. So again, we're looking at increasing the speed and turn rate of our starship. Now science ships are pretty fast, they're nowhere near escorts, but depending on the ship that you take, of course, speed is very helpful to us. So taking that impulse expertise as well. Onto the actual science abilities, those we've got our control expertise, and this is kind of really where it begins for us as a science. Obviously control, you can see that this affects all of the control options under here. So we've got the disable, the holds, the repel, the pulls, the confuse, the blockade, the flight speed debuffs, and the turn rate debuffs. And as it says here, each point of control expertise provides both of the following: a 0.5% base effectiveness for outgoing control and a 1% resistance to incoming control. So you're buffing basically your effects on other science ships and on other players, and you're increasing your resistance to having the same done to you. It can be quite amazing how much that does happen if you go up against another team with science. And again, we've got the improved version as well. We also have this control amplification skill here. So when control used on foe, minus 25, we've got damage resistance rating and control resistance rating. The exotic damage resistance rating is really important because the whole build in science around this build is all about doing that kind of damage, doing exotic damage. So we're not focusing on our weapons. If we were focusing on weapons, we would have had tactical, obviously. We're focusing on our ability damage. That's where the damage for the science comes in. And to that point, there's a reason that we want to try and max our power levels, try and max that damage that comes out of our auxiliary systems. We have drain expertise as well. We don't have the drain infection because this isn't. We're not looking for a drain build as such. We're looking for a control build. We're going to be using abilities like Gravity Well and Tychon's Rift, things like that are really going to be affected by this side. But it's still good to take the drain expertise as well. We're not going to take the drain infection. Okay. So drain expertise again. This includes all the following: so shield drains, damage, subsystem power drain, subsystems offline, power transfer rate, debus, and again you've got the improved version as well. And you can see what in yellow what it actually adds to your expertise. In terms of commander, you've got shield regeneration. Shield regeneration obviously does what it says in the tin, helps you with your regeneration of your shield to your maximum shield capacity. So we've taken all three in that. Obviously, we want to keep our shields up and running. And the same with shield hardness, obviously improves our ability to take that damage. So every point, as it says here, of shield hardness skill will negate additional 0.2%. Regardless of your shield subsystem power. So it's about negating damage or resisting damage. So good. We're not going to take any damage control from engineering. What we are going to take though is hull plating. So again, getting those resistances up. We want to try and get some resistances up because we're going to be taking a lot of fire in a science ship. Science ships, believe me, do tend to get targeted quite a lot. Whether it be PvE or if it be PvP, and you're probably saying, Bane, I don't PvP. But if you're PvEing, you're going to take a lot of hits because you're going to be pumping out. If you follow my entire guide, a lot of damage from your exotic particle generation. So you want to be able to obviously absorb some of those damages and try and keep your resists up high. Obviously, again, space traits help with this, consoles help with this. We'll be going through those, as I said, later on in the series. So where are we up to now? We're on to Captain. Just taking 2 points here in engineering because I needed to spend them to get to the next tier. So we've got defensive subsystem tuning. So there you go, plus 4.8 shields and auxiliary subsystem power again. But as you can see, that's also going to do some other things. So we've got each point of auxiliary subsystem power provides a 1% recharge, time reduction for Hanapets, as well as providing bonuses effective with many abilities. So that's what it does. But essentially, overall, it's giving us 4.8 shields and auxiliary subsystem power. And here we have the offensive subsystem tuning, which has given us a boost to our weapons and engine subsystem power. So if you ever notice your bars and your power levels, you've got those little green bits that go above your normal energy levels. That's all the bonus power that you are currently generating from your skills and abilities. Then we've got the really important one. We're not going for the long range targeting sensors, we're going for the exotic particle generator, and this is really going to boost your damage. So everything that we can do to boost our EPG, and you'll hear me refer to it as EPG throughout the series, our exotic particle generation, is going to help us get that a little bit closer to perfection. In fact, we'll be buying a lot of mods and gear that's going to basically boost that EPG rate at that EPG level so we can produce even more damage. We want to boost as much EPG as we can, and you're going to see why when we couple it with our resistance debuffs, because it's not just about boosting our EPG damage, it's also about reducing the resistances of the enemy that we're currently fighting, and doing that in a certain particular order with the build is going to be really helpful as well. So exotic particle generators, you can see that each tier gives extra EPG, so very important. We then get down to admiral skills, and we don't have, as I said, we don't have any tactical. It's all in engineering and science. If we look at engineering, we've got warp core potential, plus 3 to all subsystem power, so that's a flat bonus, and also the subsystem target warp core efficiency there. So again, we're boosting our damages, and we're boosting our power levels across the board for these two here. So warp core efficiency, and that's a good thing. Engineers and science, we've got to get along, bros. We've got to get along. Engineering readiness. So basically, this is going to apply a bonus to your ability recharge or engineering bridge officer abilities. That just gives you a little bit of a boost for that. So Again, if you think about some of the abilities you might want to use, like boosting shield power, for example, that's going to help that. And also, it's a place where you can just spend your points really, and it's more efficient because we're not focusing on our weapons and stuff like that. We're focusing on damage through. This means it's better to build up our readiness for casting defensive abilities and keeping us alive as a science player. Scientific readiness, so it does what it says on the tin. Basically, this is recharging your science bridge officer abilities. Of course, we're going to take it to the max level because we're all about getting our abilities off. So also we have a lot of science abilities flowing out of this. So the more we can reduce our cooldowns till we get towards the universal cooldown on those abilities, the better it will be for us. And there are very many ways to try and reduce ability cooldowns. This can be done through duty officers. This can be done through bridge officers. This can be done through these skills as well. And again, you're going to see how some of the bridge officers that we bought later on in the series have helped with reducing that readiness. Now, bearing in mind, I never said it would be cheap to get there, so if you are going to copy this layer for layer, you will be spending quite a lot of EC, you will be spending quite a lot of Zen, you will be needing to get certain ships if you want to be at the top level, but that doesn't mean that you can't apply this build, I will say, without having those bridge officers. In fact, Gul is running a very minor version of this. He has bought a few things with Zen, but he hasn't gone to the level that I've gone to obviously push the boundaries, as is a requirement if you want to play at the top of your game. So you have a choice, guys. The skill tree, though, is not a choice. You kind of will need to do this if you want to get the very best out of your ship. And to be fair, 300 Zen is not a lot of Zen to spend to get it right from the very beginning. So shield mastery, pretty much, I'm not going to explain these too much, but basically shield mastery, shield absorption, shield reflection, all ways to basically reduce the damage that you're going to take, reduce how bad crits hit. You will find that tactical players will be critting you a lot. They have a lot of boosts to their critical damage and also the amount of times they can actually perform crits on you. So if I didn't have these, I would suffer a lot more, and you can see why. So on the shield mastery, trigger up to 20% of incoming critical hit damage reflected back at the attacker, so that's reflecting back damage. And you can negate an incoming critical hit once per 20 seconds. Now that might not sound like a lot if you're getting critted against, but just reflecting one of those, it could be the difference between life and death depending on your other abilities. So it's something to bear in mind. And again, you've got the shield absorption, 20% of incoming critical hit damage applied as shield healing to all facing. So that's going to boost your shields just from taking crits, which you will do both in PvE and PvP. Now, a lot of people forget this, but that's not the only thing they added to this now with the skill tree. You also have these abilities here. So I'm going to hover over these. Very, very, very simple. You can see that various ones open up different things. You've got bridge officer training here. If we look at the actual abilities I've chosen, we've got battery expertise. So basically, Hannah Pets or battery, that's really up to you, but I prefer battery and device effects because you're bound to use them more often. This one again doesn't really matter. Sector space travel, transport cooldown. I chose sector space travel. Just seemed like a more logical choice to me. In terms of our choice here from engineering, I've gone for subsystem repair. So I like having resistance. I don't think the additional plus 10 hull capacity is really... Plus 10 isn't a lot in comparison to a 50%, a plus 50 resistance basically to the subsystem offline effects. You know, so you'll find that other science players will try and knock your subsystems out. Even some tax will try and use little tricks to knock certain subsystems out. It is worth trying to avoid that, I think, over anything else. But this is, again, it's optional. It's up to you what you choose. In terms of science, maximum shield capacity or starship self, it's up to you. I'll leave this one up to you. You might want shield capacity, but again, it's plus 10 shield capacity. You might want stealth values depending on if you have certain abilities that you'll be using. Again, it's an optional thing you can choose. Engine subsystem power or shield subsystem power. I went for engines. I like to be fast, but you might want shield subsystem power. But again, plus 2 is really negligible, so it's up to you. Again, it's a choice you have. Starship possession or control resistance. Absolutely control resistance. Okay, it's nice to be able to detect things from your auxiliary power in terms of detecting stealth, but I find having extra resistance to incoming control effects is really helpful, especially in PvE as well. So there you go. Up to you again, though. I'll leave that one up to you. Weapon subsystem power or auxiliary subsystem power. That one should be a no-brainer for anyone that knows what we're using for our abilities. We're not using weapon subsystem power for our abilities to do damage. We are using auxiliary subsystem power. So again, we're boosting our auxiliary subsystem power. That one really, there is no choice but to go for auxiliary if you want to do your build justice. In terms of our choice here, we have subsystem energy drain resistance, or you can take shield drain resistance. Subsystems, again, it's really important to keep our subsystems up and running. There are a lot of power drain players out there and people using drain expertise and drain X to try and knock your subsystems out of action, coming up against science build players, especially in the Scryer. In PvP, you'll find that drain is very, very important. So if you're also coming up against those players, then drain resistance is going to be important to you. Shield draining, you know, at the end of the day, you have so many ways to boost your shields in other ways. I think since you've got very limited ways to resist the subsystem energy drains, is better, and people will be building for drain X anyway. You're better off having the subsystem energy drain resistance of plus 10%. Finally, we're going to take the probability manipulation. Now, out of these, because you've only got enough, you can't get all three. The ones that I would choose are probability shells, so that's whole healing and shield healing are also doubled when you have the ability activated, and the probability collapse, which increases your accuracy and defense for the duration of your attack. Yeah, penetration is nice to gain a stacking armor penetration buff on critical hit, but again, we're not about so much about doing that kind of damage from weapons or etc. We're more about doing the damage over time, the dot damage that we're going to be doing from our particle generators, our EPG. So I chose probability collapse, probability shell. I find they work the best. You want to try and keep your healing up because you can be taking a lot of damage if you're PvE or PvP. That's a good one to have. And probability collapse, obviously, defense is important, accuracy is important. So they were the two I went for. Defense more so than accuracy, I've got to be honest with you. That's the one I take. Now my phone's going off in the background. Just typical, guys, isn't it, when recording a video? So that's it for the space abilities. Ground abilities, you can choose whatever the hell you want. To be honest with you, me, I took endurance and armor mastery, and I also took kit performance expert. I take kit performance expert because I like to be good on the ground as well. And again, you guessed it, for science, what do I care about? I care about my science ground. Shields, I think, pretty much crap on ground, so I don't really worry about the shields too much. Weapon proficiency, I'm not a tactical player, I'm all about the science, and I like to play science the way science should be played. So mine's all about kit efficiency, getting the most out of all my lovely things like endothermic and my flash freeze and all that kind of stuff. That's why I take kit performance, because I want to try and boost as much damage as well on the ground for my science abilities as my space abilities. You will see ground as a separate part of the series later on, where we'll talk about all the cool stuff you can do with the ground abilities and maximizing stacking and using your dots there. It's a lot of fun playing science ground. It's very annoying for your teammates, but who cares, because it's all about that fun. And we'll go over some of the gear I have for ground as well. So that was a bit of a quick one. But that, guys, is the skill tree I recommend currently in Stowe as of December 2017. Of course, I'll try to keep this series up to date as long as the channel is alive. I hope you've enjoyed this video. This has been Bane, as always, saying good night and goodbye.